G'day guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 72. We do have a lot to talk about today. We'll be taking a look at some interesting news regarding some rumours about a player in the AFL making some homophobic slurs yet again. We'll be taking a look at if we need to change the idea of the Brownlow taking out the fairest rule and just being the best player in the comp. Of course, we'll be doing our tips, AFL fantasy breakdown, and much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. And then Rankin from the pocket, don't tell me, Isaac Rankin!
Yeah.
He's just got the license for a brothel.
Well, I think Gather Round's going to be more than just AFL. I think this is next season.
It's at the handle at the back, Nick Dacos to get the pies home! He's done it! So guys, of course my brother is away today. He's out this week. He's been taken out of the team. It's just me this week, and I know a couple of you may be a little bit disappointed, but I'm going to be able to carry today. Now, I will just quickly say that this may be a little bit of a shorter episode, not so much an hour, just because I do have to do something quickly after this. So I would expect probably more around a 40-minute episode, but I mean, I'm sure you guys can survive with it without that 20 minutes. Go listen to a couple of songs or something if you're stuck on Spotify. Or I'm sure a lot of you probably just listen to this and then fall asleep to it. But not that I'm boring, just because I know a lot of people listen to podcasts while they're about to fall asleep. But anyway, so not really going to talk too much about the suspension and injury stuff over the weekend. The Toronto one, because I'm recording this around 4:30ish, so just before all the news comes out, and the Sunday suspension stuff hasn't really been released yet, so I think the only one probably to be cited is the Toronto Bedford tackle. I'm pretty sure that will get weeks, or at least a week or two from Bedford, because he did lock both the arms, which is usually something the AFL tend to look at when they look at those decisions. But the first thing I want to take a look at is a developing story. So when this comes out on Wednesday morning, probably know a lot more about it, but it's about a young St Kilda player, Lance Collard. The AFL is investigating some accusations of him making homophobic slurs in a VFL game on Saturday. So, sorry about that. Just a research for a video. So, a VFL spokesperson has confirmed the league is aware of the matter from the game between Sandringham and Williamstown at DSV Stadium. Collard is accused of making multiple comments to Williamstown players and facing a lengthy suspension. So we've had obviously Will Powell, who received a 5-game ban, and before that was Jeremy Finlayson. Now those were both, I believe, just one slur on each side. So this is claiming that this could be multiple slurs. So Lance Collard, this is in the VFL, so I don't know if it will be adjudicated differently, depending on, I don't know who's going to be dealing with it exactly, is what I'm saying. But I'm expecting 10 plus weeks here. I am pretty honest with you. I don't think he'll get away with this. And I don't think it's just this year. I'm pretty sure maybe the AFL are clamping down on it a lot more now and have just let it go in previous times, or maybe people haven't felt comfortable to come forward about getting a slur thrown at them, a homophobic slur or a racial slur, I guess maybe that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying there's a tier list of what's worse or whatever, but I think maybe the AFL have taken a stand over racial stuff over the last 5-10 years or so, and I can't. I mean, obviously we've got Taylor Walker, but that wasn't even in the game. These with the racial slur that he made, and he got 6 months ban or something. So I think that the AFL are clamping down more on the homophobic slurs now, because look, at the end of the day, it's not needed. Obviously, I mean, let's be honest. Is it really, I know people will say, oh, it's just a word, who cares? And look, I get that point, but also it's like, I mean, you could just call the guy a fuckwit as well. You don't have to call him a slur. I mean, you call him a fuckwit, call him a C word, I want to stay monetized. Sorry. You can call him a bunch of other words. You don't have to use a slur. So that's where I'm kind of sitting at it. And I think that that's just something that the AFL have to focus on as well. I mean, a lot of people probably would bring up the point of, we still have not had a AFL player come out as gay. Now, I'm not saying we have to have one, obviously. I don't think that's, necessary. I don't think that's something that's a big deal. But there is definitely there must be a stigma in the AFL player space to say that no one wants to come out. Now, I think there's also another caveat to this, that no one wants to come out because they don't want to be the poster boy for it. I think that's a very fair point. Because I know, everyone else knows what's going to happen if a player comes out as gay. I think the majority of people, like me, most people will be like, okay, cool, let's get on with the game. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't really bother me what his sexual preference is. Let him just go on and play. That's what I think most people with a brain would be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. But it is very interesting that we've seen in multiple other sports around the world people come out as gay, and the AFL doesn't have one. So I think there is definitely a stigma around that something maybe it's a little bit more hidden in the close between the four walls of the clubs. I don't know, but there's definitely something there, and I think it's very interesting that we haven't seen a player come out. But we know what's going to happen when a player does come out as gay, if it ever does. I mean, who knows? But when it ever does, or if it ever does, they're going to be put as the poster boy or whatever. Like, you know, let's say the Pride game that happened 2 weeks ago for the Saints and Swans game. I think it's very interesting as well that we have the Pride game and no one knows about it, and it's very rarely mentioned during the broadcast as well when there actually is the Pride game. Like, I don't think people would even know it's a Pride game if it wasn't for the Swans wearing rainbow colours on their jumper. I'm going to be honest with you. So I think the AFL could do a lot more on that aspect. But you know what's going to happen as soon as a player comes out. He's going to be the poster boy. He's going to be all over the thing. Player comes out as gay. Big news. And every single, time they have something to do with a gay thing, they're going to have to talk an LGBTQ plus... Sorry if I got that wrong. Or whatever issue, they're going to go straight to this person and be like, what's your opinion on this? And they're going to be like, not good. And it's like, really? Why? And they're going to be like, well... I don't really like it coming at people that are like me and have done that sort of have had those sort of issues or things put on me, whatever. And they'll just hound them and hound them and hound them. So I think that's definitely a point as well, because it's very hard to be the first person to do something. And I would be astounded if there was not one player in the AFL right now that's gay. I mean, this is obviously very off AFL, but if anyone's followed streaming or whatever, there's a Twitch streamer recently. You probably know him. You probably know of him. His name's Sketch. He does what's it called? What's up, brother? You know that guy. He's recently been exposed for being gay, basically, and one of his points of not really wanting to come out or whatever, or he was caught doing an OnlyFans, homosexual OnlyFans or whatever, and I think a big reason why he said that he didn't want to come out is because he didn't want to be the poster boy for it. And I think it's very similar to the AFL. Like, no one wants to be the first one because they're going to be used in every single media outlet's going to squeeze everything out of them to try and get those brownie points or whatever. That's what's going to happen, and I understand why it doesn't happen. But when there are players who are saying things, and now it's happened, 3 times? This is the 3rd time for a player. Alistair Clarkson said something in, I think it was in the pre-season game when Jimmy Webster hit Josh Simpkin. I think that's when it was. He said something. So we've seen that. Finlayson, Powell, and now Collard. So there's definitely a stigma there. And I think, look, I understand people don't want words policed, but you don't have to say that word. Let's be honest. Couldn't you just call the guy a fuckwit or an asshole or a wanker? It's do you have to use that word? Really? Is that the end of the world for not using that certain word? I just think that's the issue that I kind of see with it. It's you don't have to say that. But with not similar, but Taylor Walker as well a couple of years ago. With the racial slur that he said to a North Adelaide player, I believe he was at the time, Robbie Young. He was a former AFL player as well. Obviously, he got he got 6 months ban, I believe, and that's kind of where we're tracking now. And maybe this is the only way for the AFL to stop this sort of stuff happening. And maybe that is a big reason why people don't want to come out and just say that they're homosexual or whatever. Because I think the majority of people, especially around my age, younger, probably around in their mid-30s or whatever, maybe 40s, I think people above that age as well probably don't care. Like me, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna hate the Swans if a Swans player came out as homosexual. I'm not gonna care. I'm not gonna stop barracking for the Swans. But there's probably a couple of people who are in the older generation who are, pretty religious as well, and may have just some their thoughts in their brain are a little bit different. They're very old school, and maybe they just don't like the idea of a homosexual player in the AFL, which is not right, but it's the reality of life. So I think that there's probably a stigma there as well that clubs would be... I don't think they'd be necessarily... they wouldn't want to stop it. I'm not going to say that, but I think there'd be an issue with a couple of like clubs would probably be like, let's just go with caution. I would say because I feel like that there would be some money that would drop off from certain clubs. Like I don't think it would be massive. I don't think many people would care too much. But there would be a little bit of drop-off as well. But I think that's where it also lies, that the media would be hounding the fuck out of the player who eventually did come out. And I think there is definitely a stigma there that, that's homo or whatever. And it's like, that's not a good thing to have. So, Collard, this is accusations as well. So this could definitely be false. So I'm not going to put it on him. It could be false, and that's very true. And that if that is the case, if people are coming out and lying, then that's bullshit, and it shouldn't happen. So then that would be the case, and I would completely say that Lance Collard, the St Kilda player, should be let go and should be apologised to from the people who have made those accusations. But if it is true, then he deserves to get weeks for it. Now, I think a couple of people in the video, when I said it in the journalism video or whatever, I talked about Jeremy Finlayson making homophobic slurs, and someone said, "Oh, well, be careful because if you use the word God or something in vain or something, it's blasphemy." And it's like, okay, I don't really understand it. That's totally your view, but yeah, I just feel like at the end of the day, you don't have to say a slur to get your point across. Like, if he pushed your teammate, or if he, did something bad to your teammate, do you have to use a slur? Do you have to? Is that really the world we live in, that we need to say something like, call him a fuckwit, call him an asshole? We have so many great words that we can use nowadays. I feel like that's kind of off book. I feel like, just let it go. It doesn't need to be said. And look, if it's like a Finlayson situation, he said it in the heat of the moment, it was an accident. He immediately came off and admitted to it. I don't mind that. Like, in the heat of the moment, I feel like sometimes words can be said and you can regret them. And I feel like that's how Jeremy Finlayson had it. He got 3 weeks and, he came back and he's fine now. So I feel like at the heat of the moment, you can maybe say something you shouldn't. I'm not saying that that's not exactly an excuse for Collard if he did do it, but I do believe that there is some point to say maybe in the heat of the moment he said something he shouldn't have. And yeah, I think that also needs to be taken into account. But if this is true, he has said multiple slurs, then he's going to get... If Powell got 5, and that was for 1, I believe, then Collard's going to be gone for a while. That's just my point. I think I'm kind of going around in circles now, so I think we'll leave it there. Shut up, AFL app, you stupid dog. See? Another great reference. So let's move on. So next I wanted to take a look at some interesting news about a former AFL player, West Coast star, and Brad Shepherd. He is coming out and he's suing the AFL, the club, in the West Coast Eagles, and the doctors over career-ending injuries. So former West Coast defender Brad Shepherd suing the AFL, the Eagles, and 2 of the doctors for medical negligence after he was left with long-term concussion symptoms following his decorated AFL career. So, and he said so this was made claim last year, claim for damages, interest, and costs of personal injury suffering during the employment in the AFL Football League, the West Coast Eagles, from 25th of November 2009 onwards. So, I don't have an issue with that. I think that's very fair. If you're I think there's probably a couple of people who are a bit off, who would be saying that's his job, that's his that's his job at the end of the day. He knew he was going into when he got those injuries, and at the end of the day, he should wear the consequences, I guess. I think that's a very stupid take. I'm just saying that's probably a take that some people would have. I think that very recently we've seen a couple of players with concussion symptoms who have had them when playing AFL. In their own lives. We've obviously had Shane Tuck, a lot of Fremantle players had it, even going far back as Danny Frawley as well. He had a lot of issues with head knocks, and he obviously passed away into his own life. So I think it's a very big topic the AFL have to take seriously now. It's serious that they have to deal with it. Now, I think they're trying to a lot more with the game, and at the end of the day, they can't stop everything. I think that's fair enough. I'm not asking that they can't have no contact. That would be stupid. But at the end of the day, they need to make this a lot more serious. They need to deal with it. And Brad Shepherd, if he feels that he was neglected in his time at the West Coast Eagles, by every right does he have to go and sue the club, sue the AFL for negligence. I think that's fair enough. And that's not saying that he's going to win. Who knows? He may lose. But we obviously saw, was it the start of this year, late last year or something? A lot of players and whatever came together. I know Max Rook, a former Geelong player, came out and was ready to sue the AFL for negligence as well, for, concussion and that sort of stuff. So I think the AFL definitely have to put some protocols into place so they obviously don't get sued in future. Whether that be that players have to take a longer period off. Now, at the moment it's 12 days. Maybe it should be longer. I don't know. I don't think that's really a big matter, to be honest, because I think just giving extra time off is not exactly a massive fix. Maybe there needs to be more. It does seem like they're doing a lot better this year on the fact of if a player does receive a head knock, most of the time they're not coming back onto the field. There's been a couple of instances, but most of the time they're off, and that's pretty much it, which I think is probably the fair way to go. I think if you've got any sort of concern over a player who could have suffered a concussion, even if it's very mild, they should be ruled out of the game and should be given the utmost care. I think that's fair enough. So if Brad Shepherd does feel like he has been hard done by the AFL, by the club, then that's within his rights to look at other options. So he does say such accidents, injuries, loss and damage have resulted in the negligence and or breach of contract and or breach of statutory duty, the writ states. I don't really know what that means. So he said that the named defendants of the AFL, the Eagles, and the Doctors, Jared Taylor and Alex Strawn. Okay, so no other details of the allegations are listed in the writ, but it does separately claim against all four defendants, saying they were each negligent and breach of the duty of care with Shepherd during his time in the league. So, yeah, again, Dr. Strawn departed the Eagles at the end of last year after 12 years at the club. Decorated medical official as well. He was the team physician at the Eagles for more than a decade. So it says here, Shepherd had concussions that... So Shepherd had separate concussions that season against Carlton in round 12, and this is in 2018, and in round 22, and was left with lingering issues. He pulled the pin on his AFL career in 2021 due to the medical advice at just 30. So in 2023, in March, he told the ABC how those concussions had impacted him immediately, just months afterwards. That shook him for 6 months after. The first 2 months, I couldn't even get my heart rate up over 100 without having head spins, and my concentration levels just weren't there. My ability to focus on anything, I was constantly tired. Later that year, it was reported that Shepherd was still struggling intensely with symptoms, leading him to leave a job at a car dealership in Broome. So the news of Shepherd's legal action comes to light just after the Collingwood forward in Josh Carmichael was medically retired following multiple concussions, which led to the recommendation from the AFL's independent panel that he should retire. And of course, we have Angus Brayshaw as well. So I think that's what is going to happen. We also had, is it Nathan Cleary? No, it's not Nathan Cleary. Nathan O'Driscoll's brother, I believe, was one. I think he's a Bulldogs player. He was drafted last year, had a concussion in the AFL. He's had to retire because of it. So a crazy head spin, but the AFL have to be so careful now. The teams have to be so careful because they could get sued by the players. And the AFL is a business at the end of the day. But yeah, Brad Shepherd has every right to do what he wants here, see what happens, and oh, there it is. It's in the article. Aiden O'Driscoll. Sorry, I should have probably read along, but that's what you come here for, guys. Little research, a little bit of ranting. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea for Brad Shepherd if he feels that he's been hard done by. If he's suffering like symptoms now, obviously he needs to get this. He needs the money just for medical reasons as well, not so much just for like people would say, oh, he's just getting money out of him, he's just trying to drain him out. It's like, bro, he's using it because he's got to get medical, when an AFL player retires, you just think every single niggle, every single injury they had is just off, they just are fine now. No, they still have issues after they end because they're lingering, and especially things as so as important as concussion in your head and your brain, you have to have that medically looked at very regularly. I mean, I would imagine. So I think that's very fair enough that he goes and does that, and who knows if he wins or not. Let's power to Brad Shepherd. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. We'll talk about the Brownlow. So, of course, Isaac Heeney last week was absolutely robbed of the Brownlow with his hit on Jimmy Webster. I've kind of gone back and forth on this. At some points, I've said maybe he deserved a week. Other points, I'm like, look, he didn't really know where Jimmy Webster was. He was down at his hip, and maybe he shouldn't have got a week. It was just an accident, maybe a fine at most. It obviously has brought into question. Tim Watson said about the Brownlow that is it time to remove the fairest part from naming of the Brownlow medal. Obviously, at the moment, it's the best and fairest in the AFL. I don't think Isaac Heeney was actually going to win the Brownlow, if I'm being honest with you. But I think it's probably time to remove it. I know that some people would say, oh, that's unfair, because it's probably... there would have been winners in the past that have, weren't the fairest or whatever. Sorry, who got suspended and then got it robbed. Fair enough. But I just think... I feel like the best player should win the Brownlow medal. The best player. Look, if you punch a player and you get 4 weeks off, you're probably not winning the Brownlow anyway because you've missed 4 weeks. Look at Nick Dacos last year. Obviously, he wasn't suspended, but he missed the last, 4 or 5 weeks of the season because of injury. Now, he would have won the Brownlow if it wasn't for the injury. So if you miss 4 or 5 weeks because you punched someone, you're probably not going to win it. And look, at the end of the day, if Isaac Heeney gets the most amount of votes, I think as a supporter of the AFL, and most people would kind of feel a little bit hard done by to say, he probably deserved it, really. Like, I think most people would say he deserved the Brownlow medal. It's unfair that he's not going to get it, even though he got the most amount of votes, because he was the best player of the year. And I think even though there was a lot of contention last year of Lockie Neal winning it, he was the best player of the year, according to the Brownlow, and I still think he was a very good player. I still don't think he really deserved it. Sorry, to any Brisbane fans. He did deserve it, but I'm saying I feel like there was maybe more of a worthy winner. Let's put it that way, if that's better. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I thought Zach Butters should have won it, but obviously he won the Brownlow Riders medal, the most important medal of them all, guys, so that's most important. I think they probably could remove the fairest title from the Brownlow medal and give it to whoever gets the most votes, which is seen as the best. I think it's fair enough. But I think there's a lot of flaws with the Brownlow to begin with. I think they've kind of tapered away from the best player, really, and it's all about who gets the most amount of disposals for a lot of the time. So, I mean, I think there's other flaws with the Brownlow you could look at, but I think that could be something they could look at in seasons past. Maybe they could just look at that going forward, maybe removing that tag. Maybe. Who knows? But speaking of the Brownlow and that sort of talk, what happened at the end of that, duty or whatever? They obviously appealed. They obviously had the tribunal. They lost. They went to the appeals board. They lost again. After that, for some reason, Isaac Heeney made this awkward as fuck interview after apologising to, I think it was the Swans fans or whatever, and it was very strange. Like, I'm a Swans supporter or whatever, and I looked at it and I was like, why are you apologising? Did you take my membership money? Maybe they did, I don't know. Maybe that's why they were apologising, because I'm a member of the Swans and they use that money for his legal defence. Even so, I'm like, I mean, I'd rather that be used in something else, but if you want to use it for whatever, I mean, it's not really up to me. I mean, if you told me that if that money that I used for membership was used for the defence of Isaac Heeney, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. It was very awkward. But after that, the Giants made a very funny response, I thought, with Toby Green coming out and apologising for getting a fine this week. I thought that was hilarious. But this moves us to the Flog of the Week. So, this week, this shone out like a beam of light of being the Flog of the Week. And look, I like this guy. I think he's done very well at the Swans. Yes, it's directed at a Swans person, but every single person can be in the limelight for the Flog of the Week nomination. So, of course, if you don't know, Flog of the Week, we're giving it out every single week, a nomination for the season. And at the end of the regular season, in between the bye of the finals and the regular season or whatever, we're going to be doing a live countdown to the Boundary Riders medal votes, which we'd obviously do with the review. And then we're going to be doing a bunch of other awards as well, like the Flog of the Year, similar to the Tool of the Year that they do in the old before the game days. Probably do a Market and Goal of the Year as well. Maybe the stuff that we've actually done on stream. So we have some great highlights of them. That could be an idea. Maybe that we can do some other awards as well. But of course, at this stage, the Flog of the Week this week is Tom Harley. So, Tom Harley was not impressed by the GWS joke, and he came out and said that he did see the Giants' response to this. I'm not going to give it any airtime, pretty low brow. He went and said that Isaac Heeney is a champion of our club and a champion of the game, and talked about him growing the game, a bloke from Newcastle, brought up in the rugby league, but I wouldn't have done it. So he said that I would suggest that Tom... So people have came out and laughed at this and joked at it. Jason Dunstall was one who said, I would suggest that Tom Harley is being a little bit too precious. Get over yourself, Sydney. Just go back and win the flag. That's the best answer to it. Which I totally agree. I think, by the way, the Giants, the last couple of Sydney derbies have done these sort of little... advertisements for the Sydney Derby and trying to get hype around it, which I really like. I think it's really good and trying to bring some sort of spark to the contest. And the Swans have won the last two, so they've responded on the field, which I think is fine, and that's good from the Swans. That's what they need to do. But I don't think, for one, Toby Green made any accusation about Isaac Heeney not being a great player of the club or the AFL, and for some reason Tom Harley was bringing up the fact that he was growing the game and from Newcastle in a rugby league area. Now I haven't seen the full interview, but why be so hurt by this? It was a joke and not exactly the most creative joke either. It was just a little interview, little puff piece, and I thought it was quite funny. At the end of the day, it makes you look like a bit of a soft cock. I'm going to be honest with you, Tom. You're a tough player as well. So to act like, oh, that joke hurt my feelings, I didn't like it, I wouldn't have done it. It's like, who cares? It's like, I thought it was very awkward from Isaac Heeney to come out and make this sort of statement. I don't know if the club told him to. I hope it wasn't him, because it's like, why are you making this statement, Isaac? No one on the planet would have thought that it was you. No one's blaming Isaac for this decision. Or whatever. No Swans fan is sitting there going, you absolute arsehole. I can't believe you are trying to take this to the appeals board. And no one's really angry at Sydney either. I don't think anyone's angry at the Sydney Swans for doing it. And look, Isaac Heeney missed the weekend against North Melbourne. Swans went up and won. So great win from Sydney. Great job, boys. We love to see it. Tom Harley, get over yourself, man. You don't have to be so fucking serious all the time. I think he's very good at his job at the Swans. I think he took over from Andrew Pridham, I believe, and he's doing a very good job up there. But at the end of the day, look, if someone brought that up, just say, oh, I thought it was quite humorous, or whatever. That's it. That's all you had to do. You didn't have to fucking have a whinge about it. You didn't have to go, oh, I thought it was a bit mean. It's like, who cares, Tom? No one gives a fuck. Get over it. It doesn't matter. I'm a Swans fan. I thought it was funny. Most Swans fans thought it was funny. You know who doesn't think it's funny? Absolute fuckwits who have a stick up their ass and can't laugh at a silly joke. This wasn't even that... It wasn't even that offensive. Obviously it wasn't offensive, and people are getting butthurt over it. Get over yourself. Anyway, we'll move on. So, of course, guys, with that being said, let's get to our tips for round 19. So, big round coming up this week. Obviously, we had a lot of movement on the ladder last week as well. But let's get to round 19 itself. So, we start on Friday night. Essendon against the Crows, I've gone Adelaide. On Saturday, I've gone the Giants over the Gold Coast Suns, St Kilda over the West Coast Eagles, Hawthorn over Collingwood, Geelong over Western Bulldogs, Port Adelaide over Richmond, and on Sunday, I'm picking the Lions over the Swans, Fremantle over Melbourne, and then Carlton over North Melbourne. Now, my brother has provided us with his tips as well, so I'll quickly go through his. He has gone Essendon over the Crows, GWS over the Gold Coast Suns, St Kilda over West Coast, Hawthorn over Collingwood, Geelong over the Western Bulldogs, Port Adelaide over Richmond, Brisbane over the Swans, Fremantle over Melbourne, and then Carlton over North Melbourne. So he's gone with every single home team. I have gone with every single home team bar the first game. We'll go through a couple of games quickly, just a couple of explanations or whatever. So let's go with the only one that we've got different this week, which is Essendon v Adelaide. So he has gone Essendon because they've got a good record at Marvel this year. They've won 4 games, lost 1. They've been down the last month, but they should be able to beat the Crows without Isaac Rankin and should be able to respond. Essendon have not been in consistent form. I think they've gone pretty much win-loss for quite a while now, actually. So they're due for a win, you'd look at it that front. On my side, I actually think the Crows looked pretty good against St Kilda last week. I think they broke away late, which was a good sign. And I think Riley Thilthorpe being back into this side is going to give them a great avenue to goal. This is at Marvel Stadium, so there's not going to be any sort of weather conditions that are going to be an issue. Essendon, other than Ben Mackay, I think their defence can get stretched a bit here. And I think that Riley Thilthorpe, he obviously played just only I think he played a quarter and a half of footy against St Kilda, so he'll be fresh, he'll be ready to go. I think this is going to be a very close contest, and I'm picking Adelaide for a bit of an upset here. This is at Marvel Stadium as well, so even though the Crows aren't the greatest away from home, if this is at the MCG, I'd be picking Essendon, but at a Marvel Stadium, I think the Crows have a bit of a chance, and I have got a huge question mark over Essendon at the moment. I really don't know where they're at. After that, though, let's take a look at Hawthorn v Collingwood. This is such a big game, I think. Hawthorn are in great form. They did have that stumbling block against Geelong. Collingwood are in terrible form right now, outside the 8. Interesting where these two teams line up right now. 12th and 13th on the ladder, but this feels like almost a top 8 contest. This is basically elimination final. Whoever loses this game, I think, is out of the finals race. Whoever wins it gets themselves a really good place. Now, looking at it, Collingwood obviously have a lot of injuries. Hawthorn obviously are running all over the ground at the moment. Really good win against Fremantle last week down in Tassie. My brother has said, we've both picked Hawthorn, of course. He has gone. Hawthorn nearly beat Collingwood in Gather Round and beat them last year. Too many injuries on Collingwood's front, just seem a bit off at the moment. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at as well. Hawthorn match up, I think, really well with Collingwood. I think their midfield can hold up quite nicely, especially with the fact that Collingwood do have some injuries through there. I think that Hawthorn, even though James Sicily played forward a bit last week, I feel like an extra run, he'll be fine. And I don't think Collingwood's forward line is potent enough to really kick a win. I think they can kick a winning score if they can get it in there enough, but they have not proven to me that they can show their true quality, if that makes sort of sense. Bobby Hill and Jamie Elliott looked okay last week, but against the Cats, they really should be winning that game. I know they obviously had some outs, Collingwood, but they should be beating Geelong. I feel like their midfield should have been a lot better, and they had such dominance through the ruck contest with Darcy Cameron, and the fact that they couldn't dominate in the midfield was really questionable for Collingwood. So that's where I'm kind of sitting right now. Collingwood's midfield is going to get pretty well beaten against Hawthorn, and Hawthorn getting it up forward enough, I feel like they're going to have a pretty big day. This may actually be the game that we stream, so keep an eye out for that. After that, we get to probably the game of the round. What a shit time slot for this, by the way. Brisbane up against the Sydney Swans. We have both gone with Brisbane. I think Sydney can win this because Brisbane, despite their last 6 or 7 weeks being in really good form, they have not beaten a lot of big sides at home, I would say. I wouldn't say they're due for a loss, but they've had better form this year, a lot of stages away from home. Now, I think this will be a very close game. Look, I don't really care because I have Sundays off, but I feel like this should have been a better time slot. My brother has said the fact that their forward line is looking really, really good at the moment, besides maybe Charlie Cameron, and it will be a close game, but at the Gabba, the Lions should get on top. That's kind of where I'm sitting on the fact that it's at home for the Lions. The Swans, they did play well against North Melbourne last week, but let's be honest, after quarter time, that game was done. Isaac Heeney will be back, so I will be interested to see how the Swans line up in the midfield. The problem is with Sydney here, I think it's going to be their forward line. Can they kick a winning score here? Can Logan McDonald kick multiple goals again? Can Hayden McLean bring the ball to ground? Can Joel Amati have an impact? Can the Swans Smalls get to work as well? That's the question mark for me, because I think Brisbane's defence can hold up quite nicely. They did pretty well against the West Coast Eagles. I think this is going to be one in the forward line for the Swans or the defence for Brisbane. If the Swans don't shut down Harris Andrews, I feel like he's going to have a field day. The midfield battle, I feel like, is going to be pretty even here. And finally, we've got to do it last week, but we do have our danger game, which we have been bringing up. I think I did it a couple of weeks ago, which is a game that me and my brother have both tipped the same, but is a danger game, which I think could go either way. Now, we could have said that for Brisbane and Sydney, but I felt like it's a different game we had to choose from. So I have gone here with the Fremantle-Melbourne game. So this is at Optus Stadium. This is Sunday afternoon. Melbourne had a really good win last week. That was a real gallant performance. They came up, they were no hope against Essendon, and they showed some real spirit. Now, they're going all the way to Optus Stadium this week against Fremantle, who have been in really good form, but they just have a tendency to lose some games. And we obviously saw it against Hawthorn. We saw it a couple of weeks ago as well against the Bulldogs. So I'm picking Fremantle in this game because it's at Optus Stadium, and my brother has said the same. He has gone and said that they'll put up a bit of a fight, Melbourne, but the fact that this is at Optus Stadium, Fremantle should win. They've also got the likes of Gawn out. Darcy should be back for Fremantle, and Jackson should dominate through the midfield as well, so those two can dominate over that second ruck, which I think Essendon really failed to do last week, so I do get that point as well. I think Melbourne have to play their absolute best to get a win out of this, and at their best, I think they can. So that's why I'm kind of putting this one as a danger game. I'm kind of marking it down. I think this could go either way. I'm still ticking Fremantle because it's at home. And I do think that they had their loss last week against Hawthorn. So coming back onto their home deck, they should be a lot better for the run. But I think Melbourne have a bit of a chance here. And I think if they can make finals, Melbourne now, I think this is a game they can scalp. That's just what I kind of thought. That's kind of where my thinking was at on a danger game. But of course, guys, with that being said, let's move to our AFL tipping comp. Of course, we have one for the channel, and this week we have the same leader as we've had for a lot of this year, Brendan S. He has a massive lead now. He leads by 6 tips on second spot and 9 tips on third. Absolutely massive. So Brendan leads on 109. Paul, and he got 7. Paul got 4 and is on 103, and Harvey had 6, who's in third, and he's 9 off the pace. So Brandon's doing really nicely. Now I'm sitting in 6th spot right now with 99 tips. I got 6, so I was pretty happy with that. My brother's sitting all the way down into 10th spot. He's sitting on 97. And right down the bottom is, not equal. It's the same person who's bottom, but they were equal bottom with someone last week. So Brooke is on bottom right now with 94 tips. Kirk did get his way up 1 spot because of getting 6 tips. So he's jumped off the bottom of the ladder, so congratulations to him. Brooke's still sitting on bottom though. And looking at it right now, I want to just take a look at Brendan's tips over the weekend to see which one split the difference. So he tipped the Crows over St Kilda. Yeah, that's pretty fair enough. Doesn't really look like he picked anything different. He just kind of picked the favourites, if I'm being honest. He missed out on the he picked Geelong over Collingwood. I think that's probably one that kind of split a few people. Well, it split me anyway. So maybe I could have got 7 this week. But really good job from Brendan. He is on track to win this one pretty comfortably in the end. There's only, 6 rounds to go from this point. So he's leading in front spot, and he's doing really, really nicely. But of course, finally, guys, let's get to our AFL fantasy breakdown. Now, this is actually one of my highest scores of the year, but it wasn't very good. So we'll just put that out there. This week, I got last week, 2,202 points. Looking at it, I had some really good scorers. Nick Martin, 143, was massive. He had a massive game. What a performance. Jordan Clark's pretty good, 104. Bontempelli squeezed away to 100, so he did okay. Dawson with the 114. Tom Green, 123. Connor Rosie, 104. Luke Davies-Uniacke, 106. Oliver, I don't know what the hell's going on with Clayton Oliver at the moment, but he got 99. I did have to trade out Max Gawn in the end, so I got Tom DeConing. He did okay. Jai Caldwell, massive performance. Should have put him as captain when I got his vice score. He got 120, unfortunately. Then we get to our negatives. So Dane Zorko, probably the most negative on my opinion. He only got 85 against West Coast. He should have done a lot better, and I had him as captain. That was stupid of me. Dylan Moore brought him into the team. He got 73. That annoyed me like no end. Sam Walsh only got 88. It's kind of tapered off a bit, which is a bit disappointing. And then we have Nick Dacos with the 85 and Harry Sheasel as well with the 78. So the rank from my score over that week was 32,173. So not that good, let's be honest. Now, looking at my trades for this week, I have got rid of Darcy Wilson, and I've picked up Zach Taylor, who's the Crows rookie. He started the sub the last 2 weeks. He came on. He's played a full game last week and got 86. That's why I've got him. And then at this stage, I've got rid of Took Miller, and I've picked up Zach Butters. So that's my trades at the moment. That gives me a nice little bit of money in the kitty, 215k. And at this point, I'm going to have to play Billy Dowling in the team this week, but that's okay. Well, hopefully. That's hopefully okay, because I can then get rid of him next week for a big upgrade. I'm not too sure what forward I should go for at this stage. You'll have to wait and see. But then I'll just have to trade out one of my rookies who have kind of priced out at this point. So Logan Evans is kind of what I'm looking at this point for Port Adelaide. He's got 413 right now. Have a pretty low break even, I would imagine. He's going to get some good price in. Should be around 470, 480 by the end of the week. So that's another, 250k at the very least. And then that's 480 that I can throw at whatever Billy Dowling's on. So that's probably around 880, probably. 480 I'd probably say. So 880k from Billy Dowling, and then, I could pretty much get nearly any sort of forward in the comp at that point. Basically anyone. Brian Myers would be an option, Danaher, Jackson. I would have got Jackson last week, but I just feel tentative to do it because of Darcy obviously coming in and out of the team. So that's a real annoyance. And really, there's not a lot of forwards to pick from. I've already got the majority of them. Like the top 6 forwards, I've got 5 of them. I've got Flanders, Zorko, Heeney, Caldwell, Moore, and Myers is just above him. So, yeah, that's the only one I haven't got. I would think about getting Isaac Rankin, but obviously he's suspended. And Danaher, I really don't like picking a tall forward, but he does get possessions, and he has got a pretty good average, although I'm probably going to steer clear of that. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. Let's take a look quickly at the AFL Fantasy League, which I lost this week. I lost to Grundy's Undies. I have slipped right off the pace. I've lost 4 out of my past 5. It's embarrassing. I've dropped off. I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably not going to make the finals now. I'm in 11th spot. My brother's done well. He's climbing up. He's in 9th, and he did lose last week, but he's done pretty well. He's jumped right up above me. I had a huge run. I had 5 wins in a row. I was cruising. I was in the 8. Now I've dropped off, and I'm shit. So, looking at it this week, I have the Fifinator, who's in 4th spot. So that's another loss, and that's probably it for me. I'm 1 game out of the 8 at the moment. So I'm not too far off. My percentage isn't very good, but I have to get a lot of things going my way. Now, my brother, on the other hand, he has got Seymour Bush, the greatest name in the league, who is in 7th spot. So this is kind of an elimination final for him as well. Looking at it though, we finally have a new AFL Fantasy League leader. It is Shillings for Billings. He has jumped into the top spot. He's been in great form, 5 wins in a row. Brad SCG, who's been on top for the majority of the year, just slipped last week and he's dropped off the pace. He got beat by Seymour Bush by 17 points. So really close from him. He has dropped off the pace. Grundy's Undies, he was sitting in 2nd last week. He's dropped down as well, even though he beat me. So Shillings for Billings jumped from 3rd to top. Really good performance from him. Looking at it right now, on bottom of the ladder, still Mumbus. He's not coming off the bottom anytime soon. And we've got, two more rounds to go, and then we hit finals. So I'm going to need to have a minor miracle to make finals. They're obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, or this is their first year doing AFL Fantasy, they do have minor league finals, if you call it that. So the team who finishes from 9th to 16th have a final series as well. So that's what I'll basically be focusing on, because I don't think I'm making it. My brother still has a chance, so hopefully for his sake he can somehow scrape through. But that's really all we have for this episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, guys. I really do appreciate you listening and watching. If you did enjoy this episode on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. We've hit over 1,750 subscribers. That's just crazy. Thank you so much. We're nearly at 2K. I think our goal for this year was 1,500 subscribers. So we've smashed that in half a year. So thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. And if you are listening over on Spotify, of course, make sure to leave us a follow and leave us 5 stars as well, just because they make me feel really happy. But guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you all next week.